screen share is working this time. So welcome to the CI Weekly Q&A webinar. My name is Josh Osborne and I'm the Product Manager for the CI tools here at Central Innovation in Auckland. And this weekly session is just to go over a couple of questions that we've had during the week, frequently asked questions from people, or things that we think that you might not have come across, or reminders about things that you might not have used for a while, that sort of thing. So what I'll be doing today is just going through a handful of topics from requests that I've had from people during the week, and covering those. If you have any questions yourself that you wanted to ask, please just enter those anytime at all during the webinar into the chat panel there. And if I have time to cover them, I'll cover them at the end. And if not, I will cover them in a future webinar instead. I'm going to be working in ArchiCAD 24 today, but most of what I'll be looking at is available in older versions as well. If there's anything that's not available in sort of 23 or older, so anything that's newish in 24, I will let you know before I show you any of that, but I don't think I have anything like that coming up. But yes, please enter your questions as we go, and we'll see what we can do. So one of the things that I had this week is a handful of questions about things to do with Doors and Windows tools. And so I'm going to start by looking at that. The first thing that I wanted to look at was the calculated areas that you can display for Doors and Windows. This might be something that you're using already, possibly, but if not, if you open up the settings dialog for your window or door, you can head down to this glazing panel data section here. So it's under the schedule setting here. You can see we've got some calculated data. And if we click down on glazing panel data itself, you can see some settings for it that give you a bit more configurability. So at the moment, I've got a window which has two sides on it, which you can see represented down here. And we've got some settings over to the right here. So both of them are opening by the look of it. I think they are. And at the moment, our settings just says this ventilation plus clear glazing, which is the default setting. But what you can do here is you can go through and you can change this to match whatever you need your specific panels to do. So at the moment, it's showing us our total area, which obviously is just the total area of the entire glazing unit. The daylight area, so that's the area that has been defined as being daylit. The clear glazed area, which you can see here, is actually exactly the same value as the daylit area, which probably will be the case in most cases, but we can modify that. So we'll look at that. And then the vented area, which is to show, so obviously the ones on the right here are showing contributing to the vented area, but the one on the left isn't, so that's why we've got a smaller value there. So I'll just have a look at what we can do with these settings. So if I select one of the panels, you can go through here and you can tell it to treat this panel as a different kind of thing. So at the moment, both panel types are set to be treated as if they were ventilation and clear glazing. But we can say that, say this one on the left shouldn't be contributed to the ventilation value. We can say it's just clear glazing, which it was already doing because it's not opening anyway. And we can go through to this one here and we can say that this one's ventilation and daylight, but not clear glazing. And so you can see as I do that, it's modifying these values. So my clear glazed area has now dropped down drastically because it's not being included for this part of the panel here. So you can use these controls to go through and change the way that you need your values here to be shown in your schedule. Obviously, everything is going to be smaller than the total area at all times because that's the entire size of the window, including the frame. So everything will be less than that, but the amount that they contribute to each other value will change depending on how you have them set up here. And if you have them set to both, depending on how many you have, if you have them all set to the default setting, which is ventilation plus clear area, you'll get a daylight area and clear glaze area that is the same. But if you go through and say that one of them, say, should be vented, but not included in the daylight area, you'll see that that value changes now. So our vented area is now bigger than our daylit area because this is a larger section, but we're saying that it's not see-through, it's an opaque panel essentially. And so making that change has affected those values. So you can go through and set up your window to be the way that you need it to calculate properly here. And then once you're done with that, you can show those values in your schedule. So I'm just going to open up our schedule. Schedule 1, this is the one. So panel 105 is the one we were looking at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to add on some values to show some of the data that we had there. So I'll go to my Doors and Windows menu and open up the Schedule Notes palette. And I've showed working with schedule notes in a couple of these webinars, so hopefully you're familiar with this. You can see I've got a couple of notes set up in here already, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple for things that I want to show. So I'm going to open my Schedule Notes Manager here. I'm going to make a new category called Areas, and then I'll add a couple of new notes. So the first one, I'm going to get it to show my my vented area. So I just add in a value using the auto text controls. So I'm going to say vented area equals, and then I'm going to add the auto, I'm going to put an A at the end of that, add in the auto text value, which is vented area in all caps between two angle brackets. So that's the vented area. And then I'm going to make another one, and I'm going to say that it is the daylit area. And now that I get to that, I've forgotten what the value is for that. So this is where I refer back to our knowledge base. So if you head to the MyCI website and go to the knowledge base section, you'll get something that looks like this, and then we can just go to Doors and Windows and look under the reference guide here, and we have this auto text schedule notes guide here, and that lists out all of the different schedule note auto text pieces that you can use. So I'm going to look up here. So the daylight area is just daylight area. That should have been easy to remember. So let's go back here and we'll say the daylight is daylight area. Being able to spell is the hard part of this. And then for the last one, I'm going to set to show my U value, which is another one of the auto text fields. So I can put that U val in. And using this index, you can put in any of these values to show whatever you need to. So you can see our U and UA values there. We can show some things to do with what type of glazing is in it. You can grab some settings from the extra data section of the windows and doors, the fitting types, the details, performance, what surfaces are being attached, and that sort of thing. So you can use the schedule notes auto text commands here to do quite a lot with your schedules. But for now, that will probably do me. So I've got those three set up now. So I'll hit OK on my manager. And then I'll come through and I'll select this window, 105 is what we were looking at before. And I'm going to attach these three values. So I'll put the daylight on, the vented area, and then the U value. And so you can see now we are displaying this in our schedule, and because this is linked to the actual values of the attached window or door, if we update it, these are going to update automatically. So I'll just save those notes to my actual model element. So we had a 122, a 0.73, and a U value of 0.4. Let's just go back and double check that. So 122 was the daylight area. The vented area was 0.73, and the U value was set to 0.4. Yep. And so we can schedule any of the other bits that we might want to see there. This is probably the three most common, although Probably the UA value would be more useful than the U value. So I would swap that one out. And so now if we go through and we change the size of this window, should be able to go back to our schedule and update it, and the 105 window will update on the schedule, obviously, so that it shows the new size, and all of our calculated values will be updated as well. So you can see the daylight and vented areas have updated to change that, and I'm just going to swap out this U value for a UA value because that is much more useful. And that should come through. So just head to my CI, and on the panel on the left, there's a part that says my knowledge base. Click on that, come through to Doors and Windows, reference guide, and then auto text schedule notes, and you can find a reference for all of those bits of auto text that you can drop in to the tool there. You should be able to cover off most of what you might want to see in there. But if you do have any suggestions for other things that it would be good to get auto text for, please do let me know. All right, so you can see I didn't update the tag on that, but the UA value is now showing, which is 0.85 now. It was 0.68 before, so that's fine. Just go back and check that. 0.85, yep. So that's the calculated data using the glazing panel data here, and that's how you can modify the way that it calculates each panel's contribution to the values that you're getting. Just select them in here, change it to the type that you want, and most of the time you don't have to hit the recalculate areas button because it will automatically do that, but if it doesn't seem to have updated the numbers right away, just hit that and it'll force it to recalculate it right away. All right, so that was the daylight and vented area stuff. The next thing that I wanted to look at was changing the way that window and door openings are displayed. So at the moment, let's actually start with a door because that's a bit more obvious to see. I'll just go and draw a new door. So one of the things that I've had asked a handful of times this week actually was just to do with how you want your doors to display in various views in your project. If you want them to be open in plan or open in section or open in 3D or closed or whatever you need to do. There's a bunch of different ways that you can set those to work. So I'm going to start with the CI Tools door object. Obviously, in our 3D view, it's currently closed, and in our 2D view, it is open, which is probably what you want in most cases. But depending on what you're using your views for, say if you're wanting to do a render or something, you might want those opened up in 3D, something like that. You can control much of those settings. So if I come through here, excuse me, and go to the door type, you can see at the moment I've got a single swing door. Number of leaves is 1, so that's fine. And then I'm going to go down here to the display options. And you can see up on the top right here, we've got door opening in plan view, angle hinged, and you also have a separate setting for sliders if you were using sliders. The angle defaults to 90 degrees for hinged doors on the left and right sides, but you can change that to whatever you need, and you should see it in the preview right away. So changing that to 45 degrees puts that in, but because it will allow me to set different things on different sides, I could go back and I could add a swing there, and you can see that one is open 90 degrees. And if I set the right hand side to be a slider instead, you can change, let's go for a pocket slider. You can change the way that that opens as well back in the same setting. So display options, set the slider margin on the right to be something, and you'll see it starts to open there. So that's not a angle, obviously, because that wouldn't make sense. It's just the distance that it is open. So you can see that that's modified there. So that will let you control the floor plan view of how your opening doors look. It's not affecting the 3D view at all though. The 3D view is still closed on both of them. So if we want to do that, we can do that too. Just go through to model display here, and I'll change back to that view there. So you can see at the moment we've got 3 settings here: 3D view setting, section elevation setting, and 3D document setting. So you can set them to show differently depending on what kind of model view you're looking at. So we can set our 3D view to be 45 degrees, and that will open up. So I've set 45 degrees for the hinged door and 300 for the sliding door. You can see that that's how they show there. But for our section and elevation, they'll still be closed because we haven't changed those values. But then you can go through and set those to be different as well. Obviously, this just depends on exactly what it is that you want to display, just showing you what the options are that you can do should you want to do that. So you can see our section elevation here, and I can't show a 3D document preview here, but it works the same way. You can enter separate values for the 3D document views as well if you want those to show. And that will go through and make those changes for you. So you can change the way that those look using those settings. You can also go through and change exactly what you're seeing while you're here as well. So at the moment, it's set to use the model view options, but we can override that and say that we want to set the settings ourselves. So at the moment, we've got, this is sort of the default set, but we've got the trims, flanges, leaf thickness, interior sill, regular sill, and door leaf glazing are all being displayed, but you can go through and make these display whatever you need them to. So if we turn off a lot of those, we can get down to a kind of a simpler view. If you use the model view options, it will use the settings that are set in the model view options, but if you want to sort of customize your own, this is a good way to do that. Just use local settings and trim this down to show whatever it is that you want it to show. So the model view options, you've probably seen those before, but I'll just quickly show those. So this is a sort of a standard set of model display types. Where is that setting? Here we go. So detail level of door, window, and skylight symbols is where that is under, and then you can set the amount of detail that you want. So the door and window tool will follow whatever you set here if you have it set to use model view options, and if you don't, if you override it, you can make it show whatever you want. So you can show them, change the way that they show in that way as well. And windows work in much the same way. So if we grab the window tool, if you create a window that has a door in it, glazing panel layout, set that to be a door. It works much the same way. So you can see it defaults to open in plan and closed in 3D. But if we go down to our display options, we have the same settings as before. So you can go through and make the doors show whatever way you want them to in whichever of the two objects that you want to. Right, just a second. Okay, so just going back to the calculated areas for our windows and doors. So the difference between the clear glazing and daylight areas is just what you set here. It's not inherently picking up anything different, which is why the daylight area and the clear glazed area will in almost all cases be exactly the same. But if you do want it to be different, you can do. So at the moment, both panels are contributing to ventilation and clear glazing. But if I go through and change this one here to not be contributing, it's just ventilation. Oh, it's turned off that whole panel. So I can make this one clear glazing and this one ventilation and daylight. So this one's contributing to daylight, but not clear glazing, and this one is contributing to clear glazing and not daylight. So you'll get different values based on us setting that. But you can obviously mix and match it to display whichever way you need it to. Can you add a safety glass option to the auto text? That's a good idea. At the moment, obviously you could just use a note to pick that up, but we don't have an auto text to say that, so you would just turn it on or off. And we have some performance ratings here, so we could possibly put it in. Yeah, I think that probably would make the most sense. We could put it in as a similar one of these, so probably list safety glass or something like that. But yes, I'll add that to our request list. That's a good idea. Oops, excuse me. Okay, so got a question here saying, door does not display in model as set up in settings, including surfaces. Can you please go through? So I'm not quite sure exactly what part is not doing what you want there. If you could, person who asked that question, if you could add a little bit more detail about specifically what's going wrong, I can go over that definitely. Yeah. Obviously, the door, when you place a door, should place in and look the way that you set it up to. There are ways to override certain parts of it. So maybe it's something to do with your model view options or something, but I would need to know specifically what it is that is not coming through. It could be the old surface override thing, which sometimes catches me out. So if you draw up an element and you go to the model section here, there's the option to override surfaces. If you accidentally turn that on and set it to something, it's going to ignore everything that you change in here and just show the thing you've overridden. Maybe that's what you're talking about? So okay, I'm not quite sure specifically what it is that is going wrong for you, but yeah, this is what it could be. It's just this is available on every object in ArchiCAD. There's a model override setting here, and I have come across occasionally, and I've done it myself, where I've accidentally turned this on, and basically it just says ignore everything that you set in the settings here, and only use the thing that you set here. So you can see that this door, even though it's set to various types of paint colors and that sort of thing. This one's probably got some glazing in it, I think. It's saying don't care about any of that stuff, just put on the thing that I set here. That is something that I have often turned on accidentally, and that definitely would make it not show the way that you're expecting to, yeah. So that's worth a shot, but if you do have something else going wrong, if that doesn't sort it out, then please just log a support ticket, and I can help you out with that, hopefully. But yeah, so those are the two main areas of the Doors and Windows tools that I had questions about this week. I also had some questions about the Keynote schedule, but we probably don't really have time to look at that, so I might look at that again next week, although I have covered it recently as well. But if you do have other topics that you would want to see covered in this webinar, please send them through as support tickets or as questions during this panel. This session is recorded, so that'll be available up on my CI so that you can go and watch that again later. Or if you forget something that was part of it, you can go and remind yourself or send it to other people in your office or something like that. Almost all of them are half an hour or less. So if you do want to refer back to anything to find what you're looking for, they should be fairly easy to track through and find exactly the bit that you want. Is there an option for an arch window? So using the window tool, you can make the top arched quite easily, which possibly is what you're asking about there. So if you go into the, oops, if you go into the window settings and go to the shape tab here, you've got head and sill shapes. So you can go through and you can come, this window is a horrible one to show it on. I'll choose something more sensible. If I can select it, excuse me, there we go. select the window, go into the shape settings, and just adjust the head shape. Arch is one of the preset shapes, so you can just choose that, and then you've got values for how far inset each start of arc should be, which are the A and B values here. At the moment they're set to 0, but if I set one to something, it'll have an inset on that side before it starts the arch, so you can make it go around the things that you need it to. And then the C and D values are just the actual height sorry, not the height, the distance of the drop for the arch. So if you're looking for something just a straight arch top like that, you can go with that. There's also a Gothic arch, so that if you need it to have that, I don't really know how to describe that Gothic arch shape to it, you can use that, or you can use a elliptical shape or a parabolic shape as well. So there's various different controls for how the shape of that top goes. And obviously because the top shape of the window is still part of the window, you can then go in here and you can say add a top row and make a little piece up the top there for whatever you need to show in there as well. Yep. How do you hide your columns showing through top of the slab? Okay, so you've got some columns that are showing through your slabs. I think I will follow up with you on that. What could you? Sorry, person who's asking the question about the columns showing through the top slab. Could you just send me a chat message of your name or company name or email address so that I can look you up, and then I will send you a support ticket directly after this so that we can help you with that. But that's all we have time for today. If you do have any other questions that you think of, please send them through as support tickets to nz.support@centralinnovation.com. The webinar recording will be available on MyCI in a bit. And thank you very much for attending, everyone.